Dillon Gabriel getting the official nod as Joe Flacco's backup, with Shedeur Sanders slotted as the Browns' emergency third quarterback, is the clearest, most pragmatic outcome the team could have chosen given how the summer unfolded. It's neither a scandal nor a surprise. It's a roster decision that balances experience, investment, and development timelines. But it carries significant implications for each player involved and for how Cleveland plans to manage both short-term competitiveness and long-term quarterback evaluation. Why Gabriel won the job? Put simply, Gabriel checks more of the boxes the Browns judged most important entering the season. He's a third-round pick, number 94, so there's more draft capital sunk into him than into Sanders, fifth round. And the team got to see a larger body of work from Gabriel in camp and the preseason. Cleaner film, steady decision-making, and a final preseason line, 25 for 37, 272 yards, 1 TD, 1 INT, that, while not jaw-dropping, showed consistent competence in a pro offense. Gabriel also avoided the kind of brutal finish Sanders endured against the Rams. That 5-sack hand fumble loomed large in coaches' minds because it raised immediate questions about pocket awareness and processing speed in traffic. Coaching philosophy and investment. Kevin Stefanski's comment about the evaluation being all-encompassing matters. Coaches look at practice habits, meeting room work, command of the huddle, how a player responds to coaching, and risk tolerance. Flacco is the safe Week 1 answer. He's experienced in the system, has shown he can win games under Stefanski's umbrella, and buys the Browns time. Behind him, the club wants a developmental presence who can push for playing time if needed. Gabriel's draft status and preseason steadiness made him the logical choice for that role. What Sanders keeps by sticking around Brown. There's a misconception that being QB3 is the worst possible outcome. In fact, making the initial 53 and doing it as the third quarterback rather than being cut or relegated to a practice squad gives Sanders a couple of real advantages. First, he's on the active roster and around the week-to-week environment. Game planning, walkthroughs, scout team reps, and the opportunity to learn from veterans in situ. Second, he's now Cleveland property. He won't get scooped up by another team immediately, and he retains value to the Browns if injuries or ineffectiveness change the picture. Third, the club has already demonstrated a willingness to give him playing time, the Panthers game, so there is a developmental pathway if he stays steady in practice. But there are definite limitations. QB3 is a fragile place. Practice reps for the third quarterback are typically limited. Game reps are rarer still, unless injuries force them in. The preseason showed Sanders could flash, but it also exposed real deficiencies in pass protection and pocket navigation when he was under sustained pressure. Those are fixable, but they require consistent, high-level coaching reps and likely some low-risk game environments, something a QB3 doesn't always get. Also, being labeled emergency third implies he's not expected to be a planned contributor early on. That matters for confidence and a development rhythm. Roster math and future possibilities. Cleveland trading Kenny Pickett to Las Vegas earlier and releasing Tyler Huntley unlocked the roster flexibility necessary to keep both rookies. That calculus matters. The Browns now carry Flacco, Gabriel, and Sanders, while keeping a fourth veteran off the roster cushion. In the weeks ahead, there are three main paths that could alter the status quo. 1. Health performance-driven change. If Flacco falters or is injured, Gabriel moves up and Sanders moves into more meaningful reps, possibly even spot starts. Conversely, if Gabriel struggles or an offer comes in, the Browns could consider dealing him for draft capital and keeping Sanders as the developmental backup. 2. Trade market. Sanders retains value as a young player with a notable college resume and clear upside. If another team needs a cheap developmental arm, Cleveland could trade him, especially if they believe Gabriel will be the long-term backup. Keep in mind, trades happen most often around roster cut deadlines and early regular season weeks when injuries reveal needs. 3. Practice squad / waiver possibilities. If the Browns ever decide they can't carry all three on the active roster, Sanders could be exposed to waivers. Teams would then weigh his upside against his limited pro film. For now, the Browns clearly prefer to keep him under their roof. What Sanders needs to do next? This is a development sprint. Practical, measurable steps will determine whether he stays a long-term piece for Cleveland or becomes a trade candidate. Improve pocket presence and footwork immediately. Reduce sacks and fumbles. Emphasize quick release and progression reads to fit Stefanski's timing-based attack. Dominate scout team reps and show unquestionable professionalism in meetings. Expand special team or situational value, rare for QBs, but showing team-first mentality matters. If he executes those items, coaches will have no hesitation to give him more reps. If he doesn't, he risks being shown the door. Fan reaction and organizational optics. There will be a vocal contingent upset with Sanders' placement, both because of his draft slide narrative and his social media prominence. But winning organizations separate fandom from personnel decisions. The Browns chose a course that reduces immediate risk while keeping young talent in the building. That's a pragmatic, not punitive resolution. Bottom line, Dillon Gabriel earning the backup job reflects draft investment and a reliable preseason body of work. Shedeur Sanders sticking as QB3 is a meaningful win for him. Not the meteoric rise some hoped for, but real security and a development platform. For the Browns, the setup gives them veteran stability with Flacco, a drafted developmental backup in Gabriel, and a high-ceiling third option in Sanders. It's a conservative depth chart that preserves flexibility. They can win now, evaluate their young assets in controlled fashion, and pivot if performance or injuries demand it. For Sanders, success now boils down to showing steady improvement daily and letting the football do the talking. Can you imagine being the one who sneaks into the building and quietly becomes the guy everyone didn't see coming? That's Dillon Gabriel right now. He just won the Browns' backup QB job, and Shedeur Sanders slides into the emergency third-string role. This matters because the Browns' quarterback room has been one of the messiest storylines of the offseason. Deshaun Watson's on the PUP list rehabbing an Achilles and won't be available at least for the first 4 games. Joe Flacco is the starter, yes, but who's behind him matters a lot when injuries and momentum shift the season. Gabriel earned the job the old-fashioned way by performing when it counted in camp and preseason reps. Coach Kevin Stefanski put it plainly, it was an all-encompassing evaluation, and Gabriel checked the boxes. Gabriel's preseason line gives the snapshot, 25 for 37, 272 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That's not flashy, but it's steady, and Steph said Gabriel is getting better and better. He battled through a hamstring issue in camp too, which makes the win even sweeter. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders, a 5th-round pick who flashed in moments, will open the year as QB3 and be the emergency option for Week 1 against Cincinnati. That tells you the Browns saw enough upside to keep him around, despite some inconsistency in the preseason and a rough final outing against the Rams. Kenny Pickett's trade to the Raiders earlier in camp cleared one roster crunch, and it indirectly helped create the space for Gabriel to rise. The Browns front office chose to keep options and developmental pieces rather than cling to every veteran body. That's a theme this offseason. Roster flexibility matters more than sentiment. What does this mean for the Browns season? Short term. Having a reliable backup like Gabriel matters if Flacco gets nicked or needs rest. Long term, Shedeur staying on the roster gives the team the chance to develop his talent in-house without burning a roster spot on a more experienced, pricier backup. And with Watson sidelined, this QB room will be tested early. The opener versus the Bengals on September 7 is the first real measuring stick. Bottom line, Dillon Gabriel grabbed a clear path to meaningful NFL snaps as the Browns' number 2, and Shedeur Sanders gets a developmental seat at QB3. For Cleveland, it's a pragmatic mix of readiness and future upside. For fans, buckle up. The quarterback story in Cleveland is far from over, and the first few weeks could be decisive.